Elif had always believed in love, but when she met Taimoor, she discovered a version of it that was raw, consuming, and unlike anything she had ever experienced. From the very first moment, their connection felt magnetic, as though the universe had carefully aligned their paths for this collision of souls. Taimoor was charismatic, bold, and dangerously charming. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who knew the effect he had on people, especially women. Yet when his eyes fell on Elif, something shifted. She wasn't just another admirer, she was different. Her innocence mixed with quiet strength drew him in, and before long, he was captivated. For Elif, Taimoor was everything she had ever dreamed of and everything she had feared at once. He spoke with passion, touched her with tenderness, and looked at her as though she were the center of his universe. When he held her close, the rest of the world dissolved. Their bond was not just emotionally, was intensely physical. Every embrace left her breathless, every kiss a promise. Every moment together a fire she could neither resist nor extinguish. Nights turned into mornings, where they lost themselves in one another's presence. Their love was impulsive, consuming, and at times overwhelming. Friends often warned Elif that she trusted him too much, that she loved him with her eyes closed, ignoring the risks. But Elif silenced those voices. For her, Taimoor was not just a man, he was her destiny. It wasn't long before their passion created a new chapter in their lives. Elif found out she was expecting. The moment she told Taimoor, his eyes lit up with excitement. He wrapped her in his arms, whispering that their love had now created life, that nothing could ever separate them. And in that instant, Elif believed him with all her heart. When their son was born, they named him Jan, the soul of their love, the living proof of their bond. Holding Jan in her arms, Elif felt a completeness she had never known before. She was certain their little family would weather any storm. But storms came. Taimoor's charm, the same charisma that had drawn Elif in, began to draw others too. His late nights stretched longer, his attention often strayed, and whispers of other women reached Elif's ears. At first, she refused to believe them. Her trust in Taimoor was blind, unwavering. Whenever doubts clawed at her heart, she remembered the nights he held her, the promises he had made, the love they had shared. Yet cracks were forming in the foundation of their love. Elif could feel at the distance between them, the unspoken tension, the way his eyes sometimes drifted elsewhere. She clung to him desperately, convincing herself that passion this strong could never die, that love this deep could never betray. But destiny was preparing to test Elif in ways she had never imagined. The cracks in Loveleaf had always imagined her life with Taimoor as a fairy tale. She pictured growing old together, raising Jan with love, and never letting go of the passion that had first united them. But reality had its own cruel twists. Taimoor's world began to expand beyond the small circle of their family. He was ambitious, social, and always surrounded by people. What started as late nights at work or gatherings with friends slowly turned into unexplained absences. Elif noticed the faint traces of perfume on his shirts, the careless text messages that arrived at odd hours, and the way he sometimes avoided her gaze. She tried to silence the storm in her heart. No, Taimoor loves me. He loves Jan. He would never betray us. Her trust was like a blindfold, warm, comforting, but dangerous. She clung to the memory of his promises, replaying his words like prayers. You are my destiny. Nothing will separate us. But the separation had already begun. Taimoor grew restless. He was a man who thrived on excitement, and the routine of family life began to suffocate him. Where Elif saw love and stability, Taimoor began to see chains. He sought escape in the arms of other women, chasing temporary pleasures, intoxicated by the thrill of being desired again and again. For Elif each day grew heavier. She poured her soul into raising little Jan. Every smile of his, every tiny hand gripping her finger, gave her the strength to survive. She sacrificed sleep, comfort, and even her own dreams to give her son the love and security she had always longed for in her own childhood. But even in her exhaustion, she waited for Taimoor, waited for him to come home, to remember the fire they once shared, to realize that love was not just passion but responsibility. Instead, Taimoor drifted further away. The distance between them was no longer just emotionally, was physical, spiritual, unbridgeable. He still whispered, I love you when Elif demanded reassurance, but his actions told another story. The passion that once held them together now felt like a weapon tearing them apart. Then came the breaking point. One night, Elif confronted him. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were firm as she asked, Taimoor, tell me the truth. Is there someone else? He laughed, dismissing her fears, but she saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes, the hesitation in his tone. The blindfold slipped, and for the first time, Elif saw him not as the man she had loved with closed eyes, but as the man who had betrayed her trust. Her world collapsed. Yet even in her heartbreak, she held Jan close and whispered to herself, "If I lose everything, I will not lose myself. And I will not let my son lose me." Separation and survival. The night Elif confronted Taimoor was the night everything shifted. She had always believed love could survive storms, that loyalty and passion would guide them through any darkness. But that night, the illusion broke into pieces sharp enough to wound her soul. Taimoor did not confess. He did not beg for forgiveness. Instead, he grew colder, more distant, more arrogant in his silences. His betrayals turned into open secrets, whispers from friends, looks from strangers, and finally, the undeniable evidence Elif could no longer ignore. One morning, after another sleepless night, she stood by the window holding Jan in her arms, her baby's small body pressed against her chest, his innocent breathing steady and warm. She looked out at the rising sun and whispered, "For you, Jan, I will survive. For you, I will walk away." And so, Elif made the hardest decision of her life. She left. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no last embraces. She packed her essentials, kissed the walls of the home where love had once blossomed, and carried Jan into a new world, one filled with uncertainty, but also the possibility of healing. Life after separation was not kind. Rent, food, and medical bills weighed on her fragile shoulders. She worked long hours at a small shop, her hands blistered and her body exhausted. At night, when Jan cried, she gathered her last reserves of strength to comfort him. But beneath the pain, a fire was growing inside her. Every challenge she overcame became proof of her resilience. Every tear she wiped from Jan's cheeks reminded her why she could not give up. Meanwhile, Taimoor's life spiraled in the opposite direction. With Elif gone, he indulged in a life of wealth, luxury, and women who adored his charm but not his soul. Nightclubs, expensive cars, empty laughter, his world glittered on the outside but was hollow within. He convinced himself he was free, yet freedom without responsibility quickly turned into emptiness. Elif, on the other hand, though burdened, found meaning in her struggles. Jan became her anchor. His laughter reminded her that love could be pure, not manipulative. His tiny hands, pulling her hair or clapping in joy, filled her with a sense of purpose that no betrayal could destroy. Yes, she had been blind. Yes, she had trusted the wrong man. But now she was awakening. Elif realized that true strength was not in clinging to a love that betrayed her but in building a life for her son and herself. Brick by brick, with her own hands. And so, while Taimoor drowned in pleasure, Elif was quietly rising from the ashes. Transformation and awakening time has a way of reshaping wounds. What once felt unbearable begins to dull, and in the silence after heartbreak, a new self begins to rise. For Elif, the first months after leaving Taimoor were a battlefield. Sleepless nights, endless bills, and the loneliness of raising Jan without support. Yet, within this struggle, something unexpected was happening. She was growing stronger. Elif learned to live without the constant ache of betrayal. She poured her energy into creating stability for Jan. She worked mornings at the shop, evenings at a sewing center, and when exhaustion tried to consume her, she reminded herself, every sacrifice today is a gift for his tomorrow. Her small apartment, once cold and empty, slowly transformed into a sanctuary filled with warmth. Jan's drawings taped to the walls, the smell of home-cooked meals, and the soft laughter of a boy growing under his mother's love turned that space into something sacred. Yet deep inside, Elif was not only surviving, she was awakening. She discovered she was more than just Taimoor's abandoned lover, more than a woman scarred by betrayal. She was a mother, a fighter, a woman with dignity that could not be bought or broken. For the first time, Elif looked in the mirror and saw not weakness but courage. Her reflection no longer carried the shadow of blind trust, but the fierce glow of someone who had walked through fire and refused to be burned. Meanwhile, Taimoor's glittering life began to crack. The women who once clung to him soon drifted away, each realizing he was a man chasing illusions, not offering love. His wealth, though abundant, could not silence the emptiness in his chest. Nights of laughter ended in mornings of loneliness. Every party, every drink, every hollow kiss left him emptier than before. There were moments when he thought of Elif, her quiet strength, her unwavering loyalty, the softness of her touch, the way she had once trusted him with closed eyes. But, instead of reaching out, pride chained him to silence. And so, Their lives moved in opposite directions. Elif was climbing toward light, while Taimoor was sinking into shadows. Her strength grew not because she had forgotten him, but because she had learned to live without him. She no longer needed his presence to validate her worth. Instead, she found validation in the smile of her son, in the paycheck she earned with her own hands, and in the peace she felt each night knowing she had survived another day. The girl, who once loved blindly, had become a woman who saw clearly. And in that transformation, Elif began to discover a truth that would shape the rest of her life. Love built on lies may break, but self-love and a mother's love can never be destroyed. The ending: a woman reborn. Years passed. Elif was no longer the fragile girl who once wept silently at night, begging fate to return her happiness. She had become a woman resilient, wise, and strong. Jan had grown into a bright little boy, his laughter echoing in their home, his questions endless, his love pure. Every day, Elif reminded herself, "He is my miracle. He is why I survived." Her sacrifices had not gone unnoticed. Neighbors admired her courage, her colleagues respected her dedication, and even strangers could feel the quiet strength she carried in her presence. She was no longer just the woman Taimoor left, she was Elif, the mother who fought for her son, the woman who built a new life with her bare hands. But destiny has its way of circling back. One evening, in a crowded marketplace, she saw him. Taimoor. He was no longer the man of polished suits and confident charm. His eyes were tired, his posture weighed down by years of reckless choices. For a brief moment, their gazes met, and in that moment, he saw everything. The love he had betrayed, the trust he had shattered, the family he had lost. Elif, however, felt no anger, no longing, no desire for revenge, only a calm strength. She looked at him with quiet eyes, then turned her attention back to Jan, who tugged at her hand, asking for sweets. That simple gesture, the boy's innocent pull, her steady response, was enough to show Taimoor what he had lost forever. He had once been the center of her universe. Now, he was just a shadow from the past. Elif walked away, not out of spite, but because she no longer needed him. Her love for him had burned itself out in the fire of betrayal, leaving only ashes, and from those ashes, she had risen. Her story was no longer about him, it was about survival, it was about transformation, it was about love that endured. Not the love of a man who betrayed her, but the love she carried for herself and for Jan. And that was enough. As the sun set that evening, Elif whispered to herself while holding Jan's hand, "I was blind once, but now I see. I was broken once, but now I stand. And I will never, again, lose myself in someone who does not deserve me." The story ended not with her begging for his return, but with her reclaiming her power. Because sometimes, the greatest love story isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person for yourself.